talk about the Polymer80 raid by the ATF. And Rob's on it. I've been watching his statements and his posts, and so far I'm pretty aligned with what he has to say. And so, Rob, thanks for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Hey, thanks, Amanda. It's always good to be on with you guys. Unfortunately, it's in the ridiculous hour this time, right?
Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, and we really are playing this whole ridiculousness thing about what is going on here and what's going on there and where. Yeah. So this, why don't you go through and tell folks about Polymer80 and what you've heard happened so that we can set the scene for what happened here.
Sure. Yeah. First, a little background for those that don't know. Polymer80 is a company that does a lot of different things. What they primarily do and what they're known for is selling non-gun objects that the individual can turn into a complete firearm. They have to do some work with a drill, with a file, with a Dremel, sandpaper. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of different ways that you could do it, but you have to remove material from the plastic that is going to eventually become a grip for a Glock-like firearm. And if you do it right, then aftermarket Glock parts or even OEM Glock parts will fit into it, and you can build your own handgun. Of course, this is something that is no different than building a kit airplane or building your own car in the backyard. It's not maybe quite as complicated as that, but it's a little bit more complicated than whittling a toothpick or something like that. So there is some effort that's involved. There's some engineering that's involved, and this is something that's been done for a long time. These kits have been known for a long time as 80% kits or 80%ers. Of course, it started with decades ago with AR-15 lowers. So 80% lower is a term that a lot of gun owners in the gun community have heard and that they've accepted. Well, the problem is there is really no such thing as 80% as a measurement or a metric of anything, whether it's the materials, the parts, the work, the effort. 80% was just this made-up term that colloquially has been accepted. And in a lot of ways, it's now biting us. It's very much like assault weapon or high-capacity magazine. High-capacity magazine is something that we have said forever in the gun community. But now, over the years, we've realized, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. We should be calling them standard capacity magazines because that sounds better. And that's where we are with 80% lowers in non-gun objects. Non-gun objects is the preferred terminology because if I have a lump of plastic, on a desk, it's not a firearm. If I have one of these kits that you purchase from Polymer80 or any of the other many companies that make them, once again, it's not a firearm until the individual makes it a firearm. And, I am a firearms manufacturer. I have a manufacturer's FFL. Of course, everybody knows we're working on bringing an Avidity Arms pistol to market. There is a point for a manufacturer where raw materials, whether it's plastic, steel, aluminum, whatever it is, there is a point where the ATF says, if you take this step, you must put a serial number on it. It must be marked as a firearm tied to your manufacturing license. And unfortunately, for the individual, while it is legal for you to make your own firearm, of course, there is not a clear definition of where that step is. And once again, we're in a situation with the ATF where that subjectivity allows them to arbitrarily change definitions, change enforcement, change attitudes, take actions that they weren't taking before. And that's the position we're in with Polymer80. And what they have said is Polymer80, when they sell the normal kits, which come with the piece of plastic and a jig and some drill bits and instructions, as well as the rails that the slide will eventually ride on if you do it right, that's fine. But they also sell something that Polymer80 marketed as a buy, build, and shoot kit. In that kit, you had all of the parts you needed. So you also had the parts that would go into what would become a firearm grip, the frame, what would normally be the serialized part from Glock. So it would have all the springs and the pins, the trigger, things like that. And it also came with a complete slide with the springs, the sights, the barrel, everything you would need for the top end of a Glock-type modern striker-fired pistol. And what the ATF apparently is taking the position of is that because all of the things come in one box and the customer buys them in one transaction, somehow Polymer80 is now in violation of the law, even though the lump of plastic that they're shipping is in exactly the same state as it would be, the condition, the same level of processing or lack of processing that it has when it's sold in the cardboard box with just the jig and the drill bits. And that is ridiculous.
And I agree, that is completely ridiculous. So one of our commenters said a shovel could be construed as a 50% lower, because
AK lower.
AK lower. Work on it a little bit, and it can become that. But
a couple months ago, remember the Senate was trying to make it so that if you had a home milling machine, that it was actually part of this ghost gun thing. So
right, so every machinist was going to become a potential manufacturer of ghost guns, and so there was some senators who were making some noises in that manner until they got pushback from every other manufacturer in the world. But
right,
yeah, so.
Right. Well, this goes all the way back to Obama saying that putting out information about guns on the internet was potentially a violation of ITAR, because if I'm teaching someone in Pakistan how to disassemble an AR because they get access to YouTube, somehow I'm now aiding the enemy and giving away proprietary U.S. military knowledge, which obviously is also ridiculous. So there are ways that these things can be twisted when we aren't operating within clear laws. You know what's a clear law? The 27 words of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Once we go beyond that, it starts getting gray and it starts getting twisted.
Right, and they just keep adding things to it. So in this case, the ATF went to Polymer80. They did not take any product with them when they left. They did not arrest any employees. But what did they take? What did they get when they were there, Rob? You want to answer the $80 million question?
Yeah, that's what's not clear. And obviously I'm not an employee of Polymer80. I do have friends over there. I just did a big build kit project with we called it team building, capital BUILDING, for my leadership team. We were running an instructor development course in Reno, Nevada, and I purchased many of these kits. Some of the guys purchased their own kits, and Polymer80 chipped in some parts and pieces as well. And we had many people in a room individually working on their own with their own tools or setting the tools up themselves, of course, per the legal requirements, building their own guns one evening last week. So it just so happens the timing on this is when I've had a Polymer80 kit and some other, non-gun object lower potential kits in my possession for literally years until about 3 months ago. And a buddy of mine named Don Edwards, he's one of our instructors in the CFS IDS family, and he also is a contributor to Personal Defense Network. He's a buddy of mine down here in St. Augustine. He came to me and he said, I just got one of these kits. Have you ever built one? And I said, I haven't built one of those. I'd love to. Let's do it together. And literally about 6 weeks ago, I built my first Polymer80 kit. It was a lot of fun. That was what gave me the idea to build the kits with the guys in the leadership team during the instructor development course last week. We did that. And it's something I've been really excited about. And I'll tell you, I'm about to go to the next level because I also have a 3D printer coming. So I'm going to go even further towards raw materials, in my private work, obviously aside from what I'm doing with Avidity Arms as a U.S. gun owner who enjoys guns and enjoys manipulating them, changing them, turning them, building them, treating them like the adult Lego kind of thing that they are. And I'm gonna go further back, just to a spool of plastic, and I'm gonna start printing some gun parts and maybe build a whole gun from true scratch. I'm really excited about it. And then what happens? Apparently, the ATF doesn't want me to enjoy my rights that are protected under the Second Amendment as much as I wanted to, because now they're stirring up the pot all around Polymer80 and these buy, build, shoot kits. So
exactly.
That's really what the crux of the problem is did Polymer80 somehow change the nature of what they were selling because they put it in a box with other things? Now, let me say, to be fair, there is because of the other things. But here's the thing: to be fair, I guess, in some ways to the ATF or to really tell the whole story, if nothing else, it is important to note that the ATF has reviewed other potential gun building, do-it-yourself kits and said no, that's too close to being a complete gun for you to sell as a non-gun. And in some cases, they have told the manufacturers of those kits that what they needed to do was remove some parts from the box and just send a lump of plastic.
Well, and that doesn't make any sense because the machining and the non-gun part is the non-gun part regardless of what that is. So this is a crazy interpretation. Hey, Rob, we've got a hard stop commercial break coming up right now.